We have to wait and see what kind of market Jonathan Kuminga can get outside of Golden State.
He can go and negotiate a deal with another team.
Right.
Chicago likes him, Miami likes him.
The problem with Jonathan Kuminga is there's no salary cap space out there.
The Golden State Warriors have made a bold decision. They have finally given Jonathan Kuminga an offer he couldn't refuse. Literally. The franchise has offered their most talented young player a whopping $7.9 million qualifying offer. This sounds crazy, but there's more to it than it looks. This offer is only to formalize the process of allowing him to enter free agency. Considering what we've seen play out all season, this was mostly expected as free agency kicked off on June 30th. This also marks a critical juncture for the Warriors as they navigate their roster construction around their championship core of Stephen Curry, Jimmy Butler, and Draymond Green while addressing the future of their franchise. Kuminga, the number 7th overall pick in the 2021 NBA draft, has shown flashes of all-star potential but has struggled to find a consistent role in Golden State's system. The past year has been nothing short of confusing, with a potential contract extension turning into a chess game between player and franchise. Considering the recent departure of Klay Thompson to the Mavericks, the Warriors came in with experience. The young star bet on himself. However, Jonathan Kuminga ended up missing a significant chunk of his contract year, putting him at a clear disadvantage. This video will discuss the details of the Warriors' biggest sign or trade asset, the qualifying offer, its implications for the Warriors, and the interest from other teams such as the Sacramento Kings, Chicago Bulls, Miami Heat, the New Orleans Pelicans, and even the Washington Wizards. With the Warriors unable to find a sign-and-trade deal as of late, more teams have become interested. Be sure to watch the whole video as we take a look at the potential mechanics, cost, and some players that are being discussed in possible sign-and-trade scenarios. You are watching. The $7.9 million qualifying offer extended to Jonathan Kuminga is a one-year contract that allows the Warriors to retain the right to match any offer sheet Kuminga might sign with another team during restricted free agency. As a restricted free agent, Kuminga can negotiate with other teams starting June 30th, 2025, but the Warriors have the option to match any offer he receives, ensuring they can either keep him or explore trade possibilities. This gives the Warriors maximum leverage to avoid paying him one penny more than what another team is willing to. If JK accepts the qualifying offer, however, he would play the 2025-26 season with the Warriors at that salary and become an unrestricted free agent in 2026, resulting in just the opposite of what we described. At this juncture, the Warriors would have no leverage. Jonathan Kuminga would then choose which team he'd likely play for. This scenario is unlikely, however, given Jonathan Kuminga's desire for a long-term deal at around $30 million a year. It makes the qualifying offer just a formality to get the ball rolling. So how did the Warriors come up with this qualifying offer? The qualifying offer's value is determined by Kuminga's service time, previous salary, and status as a non-starter as per the NBA CBA rules. By extending this offer, the Warriors maintain control over Kuminga's future, but considering their finances are tied up, owing nearly $140 million to Curry, Butler, and Green for the next season, their ability to re-sign him to a larger long-term deal without significant roster adjustments is virtually impossible. This was something I mentioned in an earlier video around the mid-season trade deadline when the Warriors acquired Jimmy Butler. While the Warriors didn't want to sign Jimmy initially for the obvious handicap it would place on re-signing Kuminga, they ended up agreeing to a 2-year, $110 million extension to get the Butler in the Bay. This shows the amount of pressure the team is under to try to win now as well as maintain a future with Jonathan Kuminga. This was the driving factor behind what appears to be the Warriors' philosophy of either getting Steph Curry as much help as possible to try to win another championship, aka Jimmy, or bet on JK and Steph Curry forming an elite duo when JK doesn't play the way Steve Kerr wants to play. They chose the former and are now left between a rock and a hard place. In order to keep their young player, the Warriors need a low salary commitment from JK at a juncture where he's expecting to finally earn his payday and respect. Tendering the offer reflects their intent to either retain Kuminga at a manageable cost, or if it comes down to it, leverage his value in a sign-and-trade to acquire assets that better fit their immediate championship aspirations. The Warriors are well aware that having your franchise built around 3 older players in their late 30s has to be a short-term decision and are doing everything they can to balance championship aspirations and future relevance. Even so, they are considering adding a 4th player in Al Horford. We'll discuss that in another video, however. This is a balancing act with Kuminga's free agency. On one hand, Kuminga represents their most promising young talent, a 22-year-old forward with elite athleticism and scoring ability. His performance in the 2025 NBA playoffs, where he averaged 24 points on 55% shooting in the final 4 games of Golden State's second-round loss to the Timberwolves, showcased his potential as a go-to scorer. Joe Lacob has publicly praised Kuminga's defensive efforts against stars such as Anthony Edwards, which underscores his value to the team. Mike Dunleavy Jr. has also expressed optimism about Kuminga's fit, emphasizing his importance to the franchise's future. However, Kuminga's inconsistent role under coach Steve Kerr, exacerbated by a significant ankle injury that sidelined him for 31 games in this previous season, raises questions about his long-term fit with the Warriors. His isolation-heavy playing style clashes with Kerr's motion-based offense, which prioritizes off-ball movement and playmaking around Curry. The acquisition of Jimmy Butler further crowded the front court, pushing Kuminga out of the rotation at times during the playoffs. With the Warriors operating close to the second apron, around $208 million, re-signing Kuminga to a projected $25 to $30 million annual salary could limit their ability to address other roster needs, such as a starting center, additional shooting, or playmaking. So not only is he forced out due to a crowded front court, he's also forced out due to a crowded salary cap. The financial situation in Golden State makes a sign-and-trade scenario somewhat appealing. The CBA's base year compensation, or BYC, rule complicates these types of deals, however, as Kuminga's outgoing salary for trade purposes would be counted at 50% of his new contract's first-year salary. For example, if Kuminga signs a $30 million starting salary, the Warriors could only take back up to $18.75 million in salary, which is 125% of $15 million, without triggering a hard cap at the first apron. This restriction limits the pool of players they can acquire, forcing creative trade structures or multi-team deals to maximize value. Now, several teams have emerged as potential suitors for Kuminga, with the Sacramento Kings, Chicago Bulls, and Miami Heat being mentioned. Each team sees Kuminga as a young, athletic forward who could elevate their roster, but their motivations and roster fits differ significantly. The Kings, coming off a disappointing play-in loss to the Dallas Mavericks, are desperate to bolster their roster around Domantas Sabonis. Kuminga's ability to score in isolation and finish through contact would complement Sabonis' playmaking and interior presence, potentially forming a dynamic front-court duo. The Kings lack a true power forward, and Kuminga's athleticism could address their defensive shortcomings while adding a scoring punch alongside DeMar DeRozan and Zach LaVine. The Kings have recently signed Dennis Schroeder to a 3-year $45 million deal, however, which would leave DeMar as the odd man out considering his age. The Kings might try to move DeRozan to get a soft reset if they do trade for Kuminga. JK could thrive in Sacramento's up-tempo system where he'd have more offensive freedom than in Golden State. His ability to attack the rim and draw fouls would flow well with Sabonis' passing, creating lob opportunities and opening up the floor. His inconsistent three-point shooting at 31% last season could exacerbate spacing issues in a lineup that features non-shooters like DeRozan, which is another reason they'd have to part with the veteran small forward. The Kings have offered Dario Saric and Devin Carter plus 2 second-round picks in an early bid to pry the Warriors' young forward away. Only Golden State balked at the trade offer and considered it to be non-serious. The Warriors proposed they'd accept a trade for a promising young player and a first-round pick. So alternatively, the Kings could offer Keegan Murray and a pick. However, the Kings don't seem too interested in parting with their sharp shooter. Take that with a grain of salt, however, as Murray's three-point shooting has fallen in consecutive seasons, with last season dropping below league average to 34.3%. The Kings have shown interest in moving Malik Monk, and while they don't have much else they could offer, Keon Ellis, a 3-and-D wing with a $2.3 million club option, and Monk, a sharpshooter with an $18.7 million salary for this upcoming season, plus that first-round pick could be intriguing. The Warriors would likely target Ellis for his elite perimeter defense and 43% career three-point shooting, addressing their need for shooting and defense. The Bulls, in the midst of a youth movement centered around Josh Giddey, Kobe White, and Matas Buzelis, see Kuminga as a high upside addition to their core. His athleticism and above-the-rim play style would pair well with Giddey's playmaking, creating a dynamic lob threat and transition weapon. The Bulls have previously discussed trades with the Warriors, including talks involving Nikola Vucevic, indicating a willingness to engage in sign-and-trade negotiations. Kuminga could become a cornerstone for Chicago's rebuild, offering scoring and defensive versatility. His ability to guard multiple positions would complement Buzelis' length and White's scoring. His acquisition would more than likely see the departure of Patrick Williams, as he's a non-shooter who could create spacing issues. The Bulls could offer Vucevic, a stretch big with a $20 million expiring contract, to address Golden State's need for a center. Alternatively, they might include Kobe White, a combo guard with a $12.9 million salary. This initial trade idea had Lonzo Ball, but he was recently traded to Cleveland. A protected first-round pick, for example a 2029 top 5 protected, could be included to balance the trade. Vucevic's shooting and passing would fit Golden State's offense, though his defensive limitations would require Draymond Green's coverage. White's scoring ability as a backup guard for Curry would be appealing, especially given his affordable contract, although we'd likely see Steve Kerr experiment with him in the starting lineup next to Curry. A draft pick to Golden State would provide some future flexibility. The Heat, fresh off acquiring Jimmy Butler from the Warriors, are seeking a third scoring option to complement Bam Adebayo and Tyler Hero. Kuminga's isolation scoring and athleticism make him an ideal fit as a starter, potentially replacing Andrew Wiggins in the rotation. Alternatively, Miami could look to pair the two, who have already played together in Golden State. Miami's interest in Kuminga has been reported by multiple sources, including Shams Charania, indicating that the Heat are actually very serious. Kuminga could thrive in Miami's culture of discipline and physicality, serving as a versatile forward who can score in isolation and defend multiple positions. His presence would reduce the offensive burden on Adebayo and Hero, creating a balanced lineup. His lack of consistent outside shooting could clash with Miami's spacing needs unless paired with shooters like Hero. The potential of having Hero, Wiggins, Kuminga, Bam, and Ware for a starting 5 could breathe new life into the Heat. Miami could offer Haywood Highsmith a $5.6 million expiring contract, Nikola Jovic, a young forward with upside, or even Khalil Ware. They are unlikely to relinquish Ware's contract, however, and with the youth movement, likely view him as a main part of their core. Davion Mitchell, a restricted free agent who recently signed a 2-year $24 million deal, could also be included as a 3-and-D specialist similar to Keon Ellis. A future first-round pick in 2028, top 5 protected, might be necessary to get the Warriors interested. Ware's potential as a rim-protecting shooting big would address Golden State's need at center, while Highsmith's 37.4% three-point shooting and defensive tenacity would fit Kerr's system. Davion Mitchell in this case could serve as an elite backup point guard, and again, a draft pick would provide long-term value. The Pelicans have recently emerged as being interested in signing Kuminga and have possibly the most intriguing potential lineup. They already have 2 former Warriors in Jordan Poole and Kevon Looney. Adding Jonathan Kuminga could take advantage of the chemistry the 3 already have developed. Kuminga would likely replace Trey Murphy in the starting lineup, and a package to the Warriors could include either Murphy or Herb Jones paired with a first-round pick. The latest team to show interest is Poole's old team, the Washington Wizards, who might look to add Kuminga as a dynamic scorer, flanked by 2 elite shooters in CJ McCollum and Chris Middleton. The Warriors could be interested in the trade if the Wizards move Bilal Coulibaly, a 6'8" forward, as well as a top 3 protected first-round pick. Alex Sarr is more than likely off limits. However, the Warriors would likely covet Sarr as well and would be interested in the soon-to-be second-year player. So here's how a hypothetical sign and trade deal with JK might work. If Kuminga signs a 4-year $110 million deal, a $27.5 million starting salary, the Warriors could only take back up to $17.2 million in salary, which is 125% of the $13.75 million, without triggering a hard cap. This limitation requires teams to send multiple smaller contracts or involve a third team to absorb salary. Re-signing Kuminga to a $25 to $30 million annual salary would push them closer to or above the second apron, limiting roster flexibility and triggering penalties like frozen draft picks. A sign and trade allows them to acquire assets while avoiding these constraints, but they'll have to stay under the first apron, which is $189 million, to avoid a hard cap. The Kings, Bulls, and Heat would have to absorb Kuminga's new salary, which could range from $25 to $35 million annually. This may require shedding salary, example Murray, Vucevic, or Highsmith, or using cap exceptions like the non-taxpayer mid-level exception. Teams above the cap like Miami would have to match salaries precisely. The purpose of the draft pick in this scenario is to compensate for Jonathan Kuminga's upside. While the Warriors have indicated they would like a player with upside and a first-round pick, this is the reason behind their negotiating, and this might change depending on the player at stake. The Warriors' decision to extend Kuminga's qualifying offer reflects their desire to retain flexibility. While they could match an offer sheet for 3 years and $81 million as suggested by ESPN's Bobby Marks, a high offer from a team like the Brooklyn Nets, the only team with significant cap space, could force a tough choice. The Nets, however, have reported a lack of interest in Kuminga, reducing this risk, making a sign and trade or re-signing him more likely. For the Warriors, retaining Kuminga could solidify their bridge to the post-Curry era, but its fit alongside Butler and Green has some kinks to work out. A sign and trade allows them to acquire win-now pieces or draft capital, aligning with their championship window. For the Kings, Bulls, Pelicans, Wizards, and Heat, Kuminga represents a high upside gamble that could alter the future of either franchise as well as that of the rest of the NBA. Should the Warriors sign and trade Kuminga? If so, what team should sign him? Post your thoughts in the comments below. Just be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on all your notifications so you don't miss any of my latest uploads. Thanks for watching. Till next time, swish.